Emma Richardson sat at the back of her fifth-grade classroom, her fingers drumming nervously on the worn wooden desk. She could feel the stares burning into the back of her head. It was show-and-tell day, and she had just finished sharing about her mother's recent deployment. The room had gone silent in a way that made her stomach twist into knots. "So your mom is a Navy SEAL?" Jessica Martinez said from the front row, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Sure she is." Emma's cheeks flushed red. She nodded quietly, wishing she could disappear into the floor. This wasn't the first time her classmates had questioned her stories about her mother. In fact, it had become a regular occurrence over the past few months. "My dad says women can't be SEALs." Tyler Chen chimed in, crossing his arms over his chest. "He says they're not strong enough." The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, cleared her throat uncomfortably. She was new to Coronado Elementary and didn't quite know how to handle these situations yet. "Now let's be respectful," she said weakly. But the damage was already done. Emma had moved to San Diego 6 months ago with her mother, Commander Sarah Richardson. Before that, they had lived in Virginia Beach, and before that in several other coastal towns that Emma could barely remember. Military life meant constant movement, new schools, and the endless challenge of making friends who understood her unusual family situation. The problem was that nobody believed her when she talked about her mother. They thought she was making up stories to seem interesting or cool. They whispered behind her back in the hallways. They rolled their eyes when she mentioned her mom's work. Some kids had even started calling her Tall Tale Emma when they thought she couldn't hear. After class, Emma gathered her books slowly, hoping everyone would leave before she had to walk through the hallway. But Jessica and her group of friends were waiting by the door. "Does your imaginary SEAL mom also fight dragons?" Jessica asked, and her friends giggled. "She's not imaginary," Emma said quietly, hugging her backpack to her chest. "Then why haven't we ever seen her?" Another girl, Madison, demanded. "My mom comes to school all the time. She volunteers in the library." "But your mom?" "Nobody's ever met her." Emma wanted to explain that her mother couldn't just show up at school whenever she wanted. She wanted to tell them about the dangerous missions, the long deployments, the classified operations that kept her mother away for months at a time. She wanted to explain that when her mom was home, she treasured every quiet moment they had together, and that meant staying away from crowds and questions. But she knew they wouldn't understand. So she pushed past them and walked quickly toward the exit. The truth was, Emma missed her mother terribly. Commander Richardson had left 3 weeks ago for a classified mission somewhere Emma wasn't allowed to know about. Before she left, she had held Emma tight and promised to be home in time for the school's Family Day celebration in May. That was still 6 weeks away, and each day felt like an eternity. At home, Emma lived with her grandmother, Patricia, who had moved in to care for her during her mother's deployments. Grandma Pat was kind and loving, but she couldn't fill the empty space that Sarah's absence created. She also couldn't defend Emma's reputation at school, because she had been sworn to secrecy about Sarah's real job. Most neighbors and school officials believed Sarah was simply a naval officer doing administrative work, not a member of one of the most elite special operations forces in the world. That evening, Emma sat at the kitchen table doing her homework while Grandma Pat prepared dinner. The older woman noticed her granddaughter's unusual quietness. "Rough day at school?" she asked gently, stirring a pot of soup. Emma shrugged. "Just the usual. Nobody believes me about Mom." Grandma Pat sighed and sat down across from her. "I know it's hard, sweetheart. But you know why we have to be careful about what we share, right?" "I know," Emma said, her voice small. "Operational security." Mom explained it. "But it's not fair. They think I'm a liar. You're not a liar. You're the daughter of a hero," Grandma Pat said firmly. "And someday they'll understand that." But Emma wasn't sure she could wait for someday. She was tired of being mocked, tired of being excluded, tired of defending a truth that nobody wanted to believe. The next few weeks were even worse. Word had spread throughout the school about Emma's tall tales. During lunch, she sat alone at the end of a table, watching other kids laugh and talk in groups. During recess, she stayed close to the building, avoiding the playground where Jessica and her friends ruled. Even some of the boys had started making jokes, pretending to be tough soldiers and asking Emma if her mom could teach them secret SEAL moves. One afternoon, the class was assigned a project about family careers. Students were supposed to interview a parent or guardian about their job and present it to the class. Emma's heart sank when she heard the assignment. How could she do this without making things worse? She tried to interview Grandma Pat about her retired career as a nurse, but Mrs. Patterson insisted she should talk about a current working parent if possible. Emma mentioned she could call her mother, but the teacher looked skeptical. "Will your mother be available to come to school for the presentations?" Mrs. Patterson asked. "We're encouraging parents to attend." "I don't know," Emma admitted. "She's away right now." She saw Mrs. Patterson exchange a glance with the teacher's aide, a look that said they didn't quite believe her story either. Emma felt her eyes burning with frustrated tears. That night, Emma managed to get a brief video call with her mother through a secure military connection. Sarah's face appeared on the screen, tired but smiling, her short dark hair tucked behind her ears. She was wearing a plain brown t-shirt, and Emma couldn't see anything behind her except a beige wall. "Hey, my brave girl," Sarah said warmly. "How are you holding up?" Emma tried to smile, but her lip trembled. Everything came pouring out about school, about the teasing, about the project, about how much she wished her mother could just be normal. Sarah listened quietly, her expression growing serious. When Emma finished, her mother was silent for a moment. "Emma, I need you to hold on just a little bit longer," Sarah finally said. "I'll be home for family day, I promise. And when I get there, we're going to set some things straight. But Mom, they won't believe anything I say anymore," Emma protested. "Then I'll make them believe," Sarah said, her voice carrying that steel edge that Emma recognized from the rare times her mother talked about her work. "Nobody disrespects my daughter. Nobody." After they said goodbye, Emma felt a tiny spark of hope. But she also worried. What could her mother possibly do that would make any difference? The mockery at school escalated in ways Emma hadn't anticipated. What started as eye rolls and whispered comments had evolved into something more deliberate and cruel. Jessica Martinez had become particularly relentless, and she had recruited several other students to join her campaign against Emma. During lunch on Tuesday, Emma was carrying her tray to her usual lonely spot when Tyler Chen stuck his foot out. She stumbled but caught herself before falling, though her chocolate milk splashed across her shirt. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. "Guess her Navy SEAL mom didn't teach her combat moves," Tyler said loudly, high-fiving Jessica. Emma stood there, milk dripping down her shirt, her face burning with humiliation. The lunch monitor, Mr. Davis, had been looking the other way and missed the entire incident. Emma wanted to report what happened, but she had learned that tattling only made things worse. She cleaned herself up in the bathroom and spent the rest of lunch hiding in the library. The project presentations were scheduled to begin on Thursday, and Emma's anxiety grew with each passing day. She had decided to do her presentation about Grandma Pat's nursing career after all, but she knew it would just give her classmates more ammunition. They would see it as proof that her mother's SEAL career was made up. Wednesday afternoon, Mrs. Patterson announced that several parents had volunteered to attend the presentations and share their own career experiences. Jessica's mother, who worked as a real estate agent, would be there. Tyler's father, an engineer at a local tech company, had also agreed to come. Madison's mom, a dentist, was on the list too. "What about your mom, Emma?" Jessica asked sweetly, her voice full of false innocence. "Will the famous Navy SEAL be making an appearance?" The class tittered with laughter. Emma felt her throat tighten. "She's deployed," she said quietly. "How convenient," Jessica muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. That evening, Emma was unusually quiet during dinner. Grandma Pat noticed her pushing food around her plate without eating. "Talk to me, sweetheart," the older woman urged. Emma finally looked up, tears threatening to spill. "Grandma, can you come to my presentation on Friday, please?" "Of course I will," Grandma Pat said immediately. "I wouldn't miss it. Even though everyone will laugh because Mom isn't there?" Grandma Pat reached across the table and squeezed Emma's hand. "Let them laugh. We know the truth, and that's what matters." But it didn't feel like enough. Emma went to bed that night wishing desperately that her mother could somehow appear and prove everyone wrong. She knew it was impossible. Her mother was thousands of miles away, doing important work that Emma couldn't even imagine. Family Day was still 4 weeks away. The presentations would be over by then, and the damage to her reputation would be permanent. Thursday morning arrived too quickly. Emma dressed slowly, dreading the day ahead. As she was brushing her teeth, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number she didn't recognize, but the message made her heart skip a beat. Hold your head high today. You're a Richardson. We don't back down. Love, Mom. Emma stared at the message, reading it over and over. Her mother must have found a way to send it through a secure channel. The words gave her a small boost of courage, but it wasn't enough to erase the knot of anxiety in her stomach. The presentations began right after lunch. Jessica went first, and her mother stood beside her, smiling proudly as Jessica talked about selling houses and helping families find their dream homes. The presentation was polished and confident, complete with a slideshow full of photos. Tyler went next with his father, explaining computer programming and showing a simple video game his dad had helped create. Madison followed with her dentist mother, who brought along plastic models of teeth and let students practice brushing techniques. Emma watched from her seat in the back, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her presentation was scheduled for Friday, which meant she had to endure another full day of anticipation and dread. During recess, she overheard Jessica talking to a group of students near the swings. "I bet Emma's grandmother doesn't even show up tomorrow," Jessica was saying. "The whole family is probably made of liars. Her mom is probably just deployed to a desk job somewhere, and Emma makes up stories to make it sound cool. Maybe her mom isn't even in the military," Madison suggested. "Maybe she just works at an office and wears a uniform." Emma felt anger boiling inside her chest. She wanted to march over and defend her mother, to tell them exactly what Sarah Richardson had accomplished, the missions she had completed, the lives she had saved. But all of that was classified. She couldn't share any of it without potentially endangering her mother and her mother's team. So instead, Emma turned and walked away, blinking back tears of frustration. That night, she tried calling her mother again but couldn't get through. She left a voice message instead, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Mom, I don't know if you'll get this, but my presentation is tomorrow. I wish you could be here. I wish I could tell everyone the truth about how amazing you are. I wish they could see what I see. I love you and I hope you're safe." She hung up and curled into her bed, hugging her pillow tight. Grandma Pat came in a few minutes later and sat on the edge of the mattress. "Your mother is proud of you, Emma. I hope you know that," she said softly. "But I'm not doing anything brave," Emma whispered. "I'm just trying to survive middle school." "Sometimes that's the bravest thing of all," Grandma Pat replied. "And you're doing it with grace and dignity, even when people are cruel. That's real strength." Emma wanted to believe her, but it was hard when every day felt like a battle she was losing. Friday morning arrived cloudy and gray, matching Emma's mood perfectly. She dressed in her nicest outfit, hoping that looking put together might give her some confidence. Grandma Pat made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with strawberries, but Emma could barely eat. The drive to school was quiet. Grandma Pat kept glancing over at her granddaughter, clearly worried but not sure what to say. When they pulled into the parking lot, Emma took a deep breath. "Ready?" Grandma Pat asked gently. "No," Emma admitted, "but let's do it anyway." They walked into the building together. Emma could see some of her classmates already gathering in the hallway, and she noticed several of them pointing and whispering when they saw her with her grandmother. The final presentations were scheduled for right after lunch. Emma spent the morning in a fog, barely paying attention to her lessons. During math class, she kept glancing at the clock, watching the minutes tick by with agonizing slowness. When lunch finally arrived, Emma couldn't eat anything. Her stomach was tied in knots. She sat with Grandma Pat in the hallway outside the classroom, reviewing her note cards one more time. "You're going to do great," Grandma Pat assured her, though Emma could see the concern in her grandmother's eyes. At 1:15, Mrs. Patterson called everyone back into the classroom. The remaining parent volunteers were seated in chairs along the side of the room. Emma and Grandma Pat took their places, and Emma felt every eye in the room on her. She was the last presentation of the day. She had to sit through 2 more students first, watching them confidently share stories about their parents' careers while those parents beamed with pride beside them. Finally, Mrs. Patterson called her name. "Emma Richardson, you're up." Emma stood on shaky legs. She walked to the front of the room with Grandma Pat beside her, feeling like she was walking to her execution. She could see Jessica smirking in the front row. Tyler was already whispering something to the boy next to him. Emma opened her mouth to begin her presentation about her grandmother's nursing career. But before she could say a word, something happened that changed everything. The classroom door opened. The classroom door swung open with decisive force and every head turned toward the sound. Standing in the doorway was a woman in full Navy dress uniform, ribbons and medals gleaming on her chest. Her posture was perfectly straight, her expression calm but commanding. This was not someone you ignored or dismissed. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Mom?" she whispered, barely believing her eyes. Commander Sarah Richardson stepped into the classroom with measured, confident strides. She was not a tall woman, standing maybe 5'6", but she filled the entire room with her presence. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her uniform was crisp and immaculate. The gold insignia on her shoulder boards indicated her rank, and the rows of ribbons on her chest told a story of service and sacrifice that few in the room could begin to comprehend. The classroom fell into stunned silence. Even Mrs. Patterson seemed caught off guard, rising from her desk with uncertainty. "Commander Sarah Richardson, United States Navy," Sarah announced, her voice clear and authoritative. She moved to stand beside Emma, placing a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder. Emma felt her mother's warmth and strength flowing through that simple touch, and suddenly she didn't feel so small anymore. "I apologize for the unexpected arrival," Sarah continued, addressing Mrs. Patterson directly but speaking loud enough for the entire room to hear. "I was able to return from deployment earlier than anticipated, and I wanted to be here for my daughter's presentation." "I hope I'm not too late," Mrs. Patterson stammered, her eyes wide. "No, not at all. We were just about to begin Emma's presentation." "We're honored to have you here, Commander." Sarah's gaze swept across the classroom, taking in every student's face. Emma watched as her mother's eyes lingered for just a moment on Jessica Martinez, who had gone very pale and quiet. Tyler Chen, the boy who had said women couldn't be SEALs, was staring with his mouth slightly open. "Emma," Sarah said, turning to her daughter with a gentle smile that transformed her entire face, "would you like me to help with your presentation?" Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Tears of relief and joy were threatening to spill, but she held them back. Her mother was here. After weeks of mockery and loneliness, her mother was finally here. "May I address the class first?" Sarah asked Mrs. Patterson politely. "Of course, absolutely," the teacher replied, quickly moving to sit down. Sarah positioned herself at the front of the room, her hands clasped behind her back in a military at ease stance. Emma stood beside her, feeling like she was in a dream. "My name is Commander Sarah Richardson, and I serve in the United States Naval Special Warfare Command," Sarah began. "I understand that some of you have had questions about my career, and about whether Emma has been telling you the truth." A few students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jessica was staring at her desk, refusing to make eye contact. "Let me be very clear," Sarah continued, her voice firm but not harsh. "Everything my daughter has told you is true. I am a Navy SEAL, one of approximately 40 women who have completed the training program and earned the Trident. This is not something I share publicly very often, because operational security is paramount in my line of work. But I'm sharing it with you today because my daughter's integrity has been questioned, and that is unacceptable to me." The room was so quiet that Emma could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Every student was riveted to Sarah's words. "The training to become a Navy SEAL is 24 months of the most physically and mentally demanding challenges you can imagine," Sarah explained. "It includes a phase called Hell Week, where candidates get fewer than 4 hours of sleep total over 5.5 days while completing cold water conditioning, running over 200 miles and doing physical training for over 20 hours per day. The attrition rate is approximately 70 to 80%. Most people who attempt it don't make it." She paused, letting that information sink in. "I completed that training. I earned the right to wear this trident," she said, gesturing to the gold pin on her chest showing an eagle clutching a trident, anchor, and pistol. "And I have served on multiple overseas deployments in support of special operations missions that I cannot discuss with you due to their classified nature." Madison raised her hand tentatively. "What kind of things do you do?" she asked, her voice small. Sarah's expression softened slightly. "I can tell you in general terms. Navy SEALs conduct special reconnaissance, direct action missions, counterterrorism operations, and foreign internal defense. We work in small teams in some of the most dangerous places in the world. We train constantly to maintain our skills in combat diving, parachuting, weapons, explosives, communications, and many other specialized areas." "Do you jump out of airplanes?" Tyler asked, forgetting to raise his hand. Yes, Sarah replied simply. I've completed hundreds of parachute jumps, including halo and ha-ho insertions, which are high-altitude jumps that allow us to infiltrate areas without being detected. Emma watched as the expressions around the room transformed from skepticism to awe. These were the same kids who had mocked her for weeks, and now they were hanging on her mother's every word. Have you ever been in combat? Another student asked. Sarah's face grew more serious. Yes, and that's not something I take lightly or discuss casually. Combat is not like the movies. It's serious, dangerous work, and people can get hurt or killed. We train extensively to minimize those risks and complete our missions successfully. She let that sobering thought settle over the room before continuing. But I'm not here to talk about my combat experiences. I'm here to talk about courage, integrity, and respect. My daughter Emma has shown tremendous courage over these past few weeks. She's been telling you the truth about my career, even when you didn't believe her, even when you mocked her for it. That takes strength. Jessica Martinez looked like she wanted to disappear under her desk. Several other students were squirming in their seats. Emma couldn't defend herself by sharing details about my work because she understands operational security, Sarah continued. She knows that some information must remain private to keep people safe. That level of maturity and discretion is remarkable for someone her age. Grandma Pat, still standing near the side of the room, wiped tears from her eyes. She was smiling with pride. Now I want to address something that I've heard was said in this classroom, Sarah said, her voice taking on an edge of steel. I was told that someone suggested women cannot be Navy SEALs because they are not strong enough. Tyler Chen sank lower in his seat, his face bright red. Let me educate you on that point, Sarah said calmly. Strength is not just about how much you can lift or how fast you can run. Strength is mental resilience. It's the ability to keep going when every part of your body is telling you to quit. It's problem-solving under pressure. It's staying calm when chaos is erupting around you. Women possess all of these qualities in equal measure to men. She paused, then added, and for the record, I can do more pull-ups than most men you'll ever meet. A few students laughed nervously at that, breaking some of the tension in the room. The military has learned that diversity makes teams stronger, Sarah continued. Different perspectives, different approaches to problem solving, different strengths all contribute to mission success. Any team is better when it includes a variety of people with different backgrounds and experiences. Mrs. Patterson was nodding along, clearly impressed by the impromptu lesson. So here's what I want you to take away from my visit today, Sarah said, making eye contact with students throughout the room. First, don't assume someone is lying just because their life experience is different from yours. Second, words have power and mockery can cause real harm. Third, strength comes in many forms and you should never underestimate someone based on their gender, size, or appearance. The classroom remained silent, absorbing the weight of her words. And finally, Sarah added, her voice softening as she looked at Emma, be kind to each other. You never know what battles someone else is fighting, what challenges they face at home, or what sacrifices their family makes. Emma has dealt with more changes and challenges in her young life than many adults face. She deserves your respect, not your ridicule. Emma felt tears finally spilling down her cheeks, but these were different tears. Tears of relief and pride and overwhelming love for her mother. Sarah Richardson looked down at her daughter and saw the tears streaming down Emma's face. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arm around Emma's shoulders and pulled her close. The gesture was simple, but it spoke volumes. This fierce warrior, who had faced down enemies in hostile territories around the world, was first and foremost a mother protecting her child. Now, Sarah said, addressing the class again, Emma was prepared to give a presentation about her grandmother's career in nursing, which is also an admirable profession that serves others. But if you're willing, I'd like to share a bit more about what it means to be part of a military family. Every hand in the classroom shot up eagerly. The transformation was remarkable. These were the same students who had rolled their eyes at Emma's stories just days before. Now they were leaning forward in their seats, desperate to hear more. Sarah smiled at their enthusiasm. Let me start by explaining something that Emma has lived with her entire life. Military families make sacrifices that most people don't see or think about. Emma has moved 7 times in her 11 years. 7 different homes, 7 different schools, 7 times of having to make new friends and adjust to new places. She paused to let that sink in. Some students looked surprised as if this thought had never occurred to them. Every time I deploy, which happens frequently, Emma has to say goodbye to me without knowing exactly when I'll be home. Sometimes I'm gone for weeks, sometimes months. She can't call me whenever she wants. She can't text me about her day or share funny videos. Communication is limited and unpredictable. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. This was the reality she had lived with for as long as she could remember. But hearing her mother explain it to others somehow made it feel more real, more valid. Emma carries the weight of secrets, Sarah continued. She knows things about my work that she can never share. She has to be careful about what she says, even to friends. That's a heavy burden for a child to carry. Madison raised her hand. Why does it have to be secret? Good question, Sarah replied. In special operations, secrecy can mean the difference between mission success and mission failure. It can mean the difference between life and death. If our enemies know where we are, what we're doing, or when we're doing it, they can prepare countermeasures. They can set traps. People can get hurt, so we maintain operational security at all times, and that extends to our families. That must be really hard for Emma, said a quiet girl named Sophie from the middle row. It was the first time Emma had heard Sophie speak up in class. It is, Sarah agreed, looking at her daughter with obvious pride. But Emma handles it with remarkable maturity. She understands that some things are bigger than her own comfort. She understands duty and sacrifice. That makes her pretty special in my book. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but this time with pride rather than embarrassment. Tyler Chen raised his hand hesitantly. Commander Richardson, I'm sorry for what I said about women not being strong enough. I was wrong. Sarah studied him for a moment, then nodded. Apology accepted, Tyler. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong. I respect that. Tyler looked relieved, and Emma saw him glance over at her with what looked like genuine remorse. Jessica Martinez had remained silent throughout, but now she slowly raised her hand. Commander Richardson, I'm sorry too. I was really mean to Emma. I didn't believe her, and I made fun of her. That was wrong. Sarah walked closer to Jessica's desk, and for a moment Emma saw her classmate tense up as if afraid. But Sarah's voice when she spoke was not angry. It was measured and calm. Jessica, thank you for that apology. I hope you'll also apologize directly to Emma. But I want you to understand something important. The way you treated my daughter these past few weeks, that wasn't just being mean. That was bullying. Do you know the difference? Jessica shook her head, looking down at her desk. Mean behavior is occasional and unplanned, Sarah explained. Bullying is repeated behavior intended to hurt someone. It's targeting the same person over and over. It's getting others to join in. From what I understand, that's what happened here. The classroom was silent again, but this time the silence felt different, more thoughtful. Bullying can have serious consequences, Sarah continued. It can affect someone's mental health, their grades, their sense of safety. Emma dreaded coming to school. She felt isolated and alone. No child should feel that way. Jessica's eyes were now filled with tears. I really am sorry, she whispered. Sarah softened slightly. I believe you are, and I believe people can change and grow. But words and actions have consequences, and those consequences don't disappear just because we apologize. They leave marks. The question is, what are you going to do moving forward? I want to be better, Jessica said, her voice stronger now. I want to be Emma's friend if she'll let me. All eyes turned to Emma. She felt the weight of the moment, the power of this choice. Part of her wanted to reject Jessica's olive branch, to make her feel the pain of rejection the way Emma had felt it for weeks. But another part of her, the part shaped by her mother's example of strength and grace, knew there was a better path. We can start over, Emma said quietly, but it has to be real. No more pretending or being fake. Jessica nodded vigorously. I promise. I'll be real. Mrs. Patterson, who had been watching this entire exchange with wide eyes, finally spoke up. This has been incredibly educational, Commander Richardson. I think we've all learned some valuable lessons today. I hope so, Sarah replied, because these lessons extend beyond just Emma's situation. In your lives, you're all going to encounter people who are different from you, people whose experiences you don't understand. You're going to hear stories that seem unbelievable. The question is, will you approach those situations with curiosity and respect or with mockery and dismissal? She looked around the room, making eye contact with as many students as she could. I've served in countries where women have no rights, where they can't go to school or choose their own paths. I've seen what happens when people are judged solely on their gender, race, or background. It leads to injustice and suffering. You all have the opportunity to be different. You can choose to be people who lift others up instead of tearing them down. A boy named Marcus raised his hand. How do we do that? How do we be better? Sarah smiled at the sincerity of his question. Start by listening. When someone shares their story, really listen instead of immediately judging. Ask questions with genuine curiosity. Admit when you don't know something. Stand up for people who are being treated unfairly, even when it's not popular. And remember that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, so be kind. The bell rang, signaling the end of the school day, but nobody moved. The students seemed reluctant to leave, as if afraid this moment would disappear. Mrs. Patterson stood up. I think we should thank Commander Richardson for taking time to speak with us today. The classroom erupted in applause. Emma watched her mother's face, seeing a rare smile of genuine warmth. Sarah wasn't someone who sought attention or praise. She did her job because she believed in service and duty. But Emma could see that her mother was touched by the response. As students began gathering their things, several approached Sarah with questions. She patiently answered each one, taking time to connect with these children who had made her daughter's life so difficult. Emma was struck by her mother's grace. There was no anger in her responses, no bitterness about what Emma had endured. Instead, Sarah treated this as a teaching moment, an opportunity to broaden perspectives and inspire change. Grandma Pat came over and hugged both Sarah and Emma. I'm so proud of both of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Jessica approached hesitantly, standing a few feet away until Emma noticed her. Emma, can I talk to you for a minute? Jessica asked. Emma glanced at her mother, who gave her an encouraging nod. The two girls stepped to the side of the classroom. I really am sorry, Jessica began, her words tumbling out quickly. I was jealous, I think. Your life seemed so interesting compared to mine, and instead of appreciating it, I tried to tear you down. That was really wrong. Emma studied her former tormentor. Jessica looked genuinely remorseful, her eyes red from earlier tears. Why were you jealous? Emma asked, genuinely curious. Because nothing interesting ever happens in my life, Jessica admitted. My parents are divorced and I go back and forth between their houses. My mom is always busy with work. My dad has a new family. I just felt boring and ordinary. When you talked about your mom being a SEAL, it made me feel even more boring, so I tried to make you seem like a liar to make myself feel better. Emma felt her anger toward Jessica soften as she listened to her confession. She understood what it was like to feel different, to struggle with family complications, to wish for a more normal life. They had more in common than she had realized. My life isn't as exciting as you think, Emma said honestly. Yeah, my mom has a cool job, but I barely see her. I've never had a best friend because we move all the time. I can't tell anyone what my mom really does. It's actually really lonely. Jessica looked surprised. I never thought about it that way. I just saw the exciting parts and not the hard parts. That's what everyone does, Emma replied. They see the surface but not what's underneath. The two girls stood in awkward silence for a moment before Jessica spoke again. Do you think we could maybe hang out sometime? Like actually be friends? Emma considered the offer carefully. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt instantly, but she could see that Jessica was trying, and Emma missed having friends. Maybe we could start with sitting together at lunch, Emma suggested, and see how it goes from there. Jessica's face lit up. I'd like that. And I'll tell Madison and the others to back off. I was kind of the leader of being mean to you, so I should be the leader of being nice to you. Emma couldn't help but smile at that logic. Okay, deal. They shook hands and Emma felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. Sarah had been watching from across the room, and when Emma returned to her side, she bent down to whisper in her daughter's ear. I'm proud of you for giving her a second chance. That took real strength. I learned it from you, Mom, Emma whispered back. The classroom was finally clearing out. Mrs. Patterson approached Sarah with an expression of awe and gratitude. Commander Richardson, thank you so much for coming today. I have to admit, when Emma first talked about your career, I had my doubts. I'm ashamed to say I questioned her truthfulness. I should have been more supportive. Sarah nodded, accepting the admission without judgment. Teachers carry a heavy responsibility. You're not just educating children academically, you're shaping how they see the world and treat each other. I hope today's experience will help you create a classroom environment where all students feel safe sharing their truths. Absolutely, Mrs. Patterson agreed. I'm going to implement some changes, starting with a unit on respect, diversity, and military family awareness. If you'd ever be willing to speak to the class again, or if there are resources you'd recommend, I'd be grateful. I'll send you some information, Sarah promised. There are excellent programs designed to help schools better support military children. They face unique challenges that many educators aren't aware of. As they prepared to leave, Tyler Chen approached with his father, who had stayed for the presentations. Tyler's dad was a tall, fit man who looked uncomfortable. Commander Richardson, the father said, extending his hand. I owe you an apology. My son's comments about women not being capable of serving as SEALs came from things he heard at home. I was wrong to express those views, and I'm sorry my ignorance affected your daughter. Sarah shook his hand firmly. I appreciate your honesty and your willingness to admit that. It's important that Tyler see you model accountability and growth. Tyler stepped forward, looking at Emma directly. I'm sorry, Emma, I was a jerk. Can we start over? Emma had received several apologies today, but Tyler's seemed particularly sincere. Yeah, we can start over. Maybe you could tell me more about what military families go through sometime, Tyler added. I want to understand better. I'd like that, Emma replied, meaning it. As the Richardsons finally made their way out of the school building, Sarah kept her arm around Emma's shoulders. Grandma Pat walked on Emma's other side, and Emma felt surrounded by love and support. How did you get home so early? Emma asked as they reached the parking lot. You said you wouldn't be back for another month. Sarah's expression grew serious. My commanding officer allowed me to return early when I explained what was happening with you. The mission I was on reached a point where I could be temporarily replaced. My CO understands that family comes first even in our line of work. Won't you get in trouble? Emma worried. No, sweetheart. The Navy has learned over the years that taking care of our families makes us better operators. A SEAL who's worried about their child suffering at home can't give 100% to the mission. By letting me come home to address this situation, they ensured I could return to work with a clear mind. They reached Sarah's truck, a dusty gray vehicle that looked practical and sturdy, much like Sarah herself. As they drove toward home, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in months. Mom, can I ask you something? Emma said after a few minutes of comfortable silence. Always, Sarah replied. Were you ever scared during training? Like, did you ever think about quitting? Sarah was quiet for a moment, considering her answer carefully. Every single day of Hell Week, I thought about quitting. Every single day. The cold, the exhaustion, the pain, it all made me want to ring that bell and walk away. What stopped you? Different things at different moments, Sarah admitted. Sometimes it was pride. Sometimes it was anger at the idea of giving up. Sometimes it was thinking about people who believed I couldn't do it and wanting to prove them wrong. But mostly it was thinking about you. Emma looked at her mother in surprise. Me? You were just a toddler then, but yes, you. I wanted you to grow up knowing that your mother was someone who didn't quit when things got hard. I wanted to be an example for you of what's possible when you refuse to give up on your dreams. Tears pricked Emma's eyes again. Did you know it would be this hard? Being away so much, missing so much of my life? Yes, Sarah said honestly. And it's the hardest part of my job. Not the physical challenges or the danger, but being away from you. Every time I deploy, it breaks my heart to leave you. But I believe in what I do. I believe in defending our country and protecting people who can't protect themselves. And I hope that someday you'll understand that and be proud of the choices I've made. I am proud, Mom, Emma said firmly. I've always been proud. I just wished other people could see what I see. Well, after today, I think they're starting to, Sarah said with a smile. When they arrived home, Sarah finally got out of her dress uniform and changed into comfortable civilian clothes. She looked younger somehow, more relaxed. The three of them, Sarah, Emma, and Grandma Pat, sat in the living room, and Sarah shared stories about her latest deployment that she was allowed to discuss. She talked about the places she'd seen, the people she'd worked with, and the small moments of beauty she'd found even in difficult circumstances. Emma listened, fascinated as always by her mother's experiences, but she also found herself thinking about what her mother had said about sacrifice and purpose. Maybe having an extraordinary parent meant accepting an extraordinary situation. Maybe the price of having a hero for a mother was learning to be strong during her absences. That night, as Emma got ready for bed, Sarah came to tuck her in, something she always did when she was home. How are you really doing, sweetheart? Sarah asked, sitting on the edge of Emma's bed. Today was intense, and I want to make sure you're okay. Emma thought about the question seriously. I'm good, Mom. Better than I've been in a long time. But I'm also a little worried. About what? About what happens when you leave again. Will the kids go back to not believing me? Will they forget what happened today? Sarah stroked Emma's hair gently. That's a valid concern. And honestly, I don't know what will happen. But I think today changed something. Those kids saw proof that your stories are real. They saw me, they heard what I had to say, and I think many of them genuinely understood they were wrong. That's not something they'll forget easily. What if Jessica and Tyler go back to being mean? Then you handle it the way you've been handling it, with dignity and strength. But you also tell a trusted adult, whether it's Grandma Pat, Mrs. Patterson, or the school counselor. You don't have to face bullying alone. Emma nodded, feeling reassured. How long can you stay home this time? I have 3 weeks before I need to report back, Sarah said. 3 whole weeks where I'm all yours. We're going to make the most of every single day. Emma threw her arms around her mother's neck, hugging her tightly. I love you, Mom. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for standing up for me. Always, baby girl. Always, Sarah whispered into her daughter's hair. You never have to face the world alone. Even when I'm deployed and physically far away, I'm with you. Remember that. The weekend following Commander Richardson's visit to school was unlike any Emma had experienced in recent memory. Sarah had cleared her schedule completely, determined to spend quality time with her daughter before returning to duty. They started Saturday morning with pancakes and bacon, a Richardson family tradition whenever Sarah returned from deployment. What do you want to do today? Sarah asked as they sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the windows. Emma had thought about this question many times during her mother's absence. Can we just do normal stuff? Like go to the beach and maybe see a movie? Sarah smiled warmly. Normal stuff sounds perfect. They spent the morning at Coronado Beach, walking along the shore and collecting shells. Sarah was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, and a simple blue t-shirt, and she looked like any other mom spending time with her daughter. But Emma noticed how people glanced at them, how her mother's confident posture and alert awareness set her apart even in casual settings. Do you ever wish you had a regular job? Emma asked as they sat on the sand, watching the waves roll in. Like working in an office or something? Sarah considered the question thoughtfully. Sometimes I wonder what that life would be like. More stability, regular hours, always being home for dinner. But then I think about the work I do, the difference I make, and I know I'm where I'm supposed to be, even though it means missing so much of my life. That's the hardest part, Sarah admitted. I've missed birthday parties, school events, holidays. I've missed watching you grow and change day by day. Those are sacrifices that cut deep. But I also believe I'm making the world safer, including for you. That has to count for something. Emma dug her toes into the sand. The kids at school think your life is so exciting. They don't understand how hard it is. Most people don't, Sarah agreed. They see the uniform and the medals and they think it's all glory and adventure. They don't see the loneliness, the physical toll, the mental strain of constantly operating in high-stress environments. They don't see what families like ours give up. Do you regret it? Sarah put her arm around Emma's shoulders and pulled her close. I regret the time I've missed with you. I regret that you've had to be so strong at such a young age. But I don't regret serving, and I hope that one day you'll understand that both things can be true at the same time. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching surfers catch waves in the distance. Emma felt her mother's steady breathing, her solid presence, and tried to memorize the feeling for the weeks ahead when Sarah would be gone. Again, Monday morning arrived, with a mix of anticipation and anxiety for Emma. She didn't know what to expect when she returned to school. Would Friday's events have changed anything, or would it all blow over and return to the way things were before? Sarah insisted on driving Emma to school, and she walked her daughter to the entrance, both of them aware of the stares they were receiving from other parents and students. You've got this, Sarah said, giving Emma a quick hug. Remember, you're stronger than you think. Emma took a deep breath and walked into the building. The hallway felt different somehow, charged with a new energy. As she approached her locker, she saw Jessica waiting nearby. Hey, Jessica said, looking nervous. I wanted to walk to class with you if that's okay. Emma felt a flutter of surprise. Okay, she replied, opening her locker to exchange books. As they walked together, Emma noticed other students watching them. Some smiled and waved. Tyler Chen gave her a thumbs up as they passed. Madison called out a friendly greeting. The atmosphere had shifted in ways Emma was still trying to process. In class, Mrs. Patterson had rearranged the seating chart. Emma found herself moved from the back corner to a seat in the middle, next to Sophie, the quiet girl who had spoken up during Sarah's visit. Jessica was seated nearby and Tyler was just one row over. "I did some thinking over the weekend," Mrs. Patterson announced to the class. "Friday's experience taught me that we need to do better as a classroom community. So we're going to spend some time this week learning about respect, empathy, and the experiences of military families." She pulled up a presentation on the smartboard, and Emma was surprised to see photos and information about military children and their unique challenges. Her mother had clearly followed through on her promise to send resources. Throughout the day, Emma noticed small changes. During lunch, Jessica invited her to sit at a table with several other girls. The conversation was tentative at first, everyone seeming unsure of how to navigate this new dynamic. But gradually it became more natural. "Is your mom still in town?" Madison asked. "For a few more weeks," Emma replied. "That must be nice having her home," Sophie said softly. "It is," Emma agreed. "I'm trying to enjoy every minute." "Does she have to leave again soon?" Jessica asked, then quickly added, "Sorry, is that okay to ask? I don't want to be nosy." Emma appreciated the consideration. "It's okay. Yeah, she has to go back to work in a few weeks. I'm used to it, but it's always hard to say goodbye." The girls nodded sympathetically, and Emma felt something she hadn't felt in a long time at school: acceptance. That afternoon, Mrs. Patterson asked Emma to stay after class for a moment. Emma's stomach tensed, worried she might be in trouble, but the teacher's expression was warm. "I wanted to apologize again for not believing you," Mrs. Patterson said. "And I wanted you to know that I've spoken with the principal about implementing better support systems for military students at our school. Your mother's visit opened my eyes to challenges I wasn't aware of." "Thank you," Emma said, genuinely touched. "I also want you to know that if you ever need someone to talk to, my door is always open. If you're struggling with your mom's deployment or anything else, please come see me." Emma nodded, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I appreciate that." The week continued to improve. Tyler approached Emma at recess on Wednesday and asked if she'd like to join a soccer game. She wasn't very athletic, having moved too often to develop skills in any sport, but she joined anyway. It felt good to be included, to be part of a group rather than watching from the outside. On Thursday evening, the phone rang while Emma was doing homework. Grandma Pat answered and then handed the phone to Sarah with a knowing smile. "Commander Richardson, this is Principal Morgan from Coronado Elementary. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." Sarah's expression grew serious. "Not at all, Principal Morgan. Is everything all right?" "Oh yes, everything's fine. Actually, better than fine. I wanted to thank you for your visit last week. Mrs. Patterson shared with me what happened, and I was hoping we could discuss bringing you in to speak to our entire school. We have several military families enrolled, and I think your perspective would be valuable for all our students and staff." Emma watched her mother's face soften into a smile. "I'd be honored to do that." They talked for several more minutes, making plans for an assembly before Sarah's deployment. When she hung up, Sarah looked at Emma with satisfaction. "Looks like your school is taking this seriously," she said. "Good," Emma replied. "Maybe other military kids won't have to go through what I did." Friday afternoon brought an unexpected development. Jessica approached Emma after school with an invitation. "My mom is having a small dinner party tomorrow night, and she asked if you and your mom would like to come. And your grandma too, of course. It's nothing fancy, just some neighbors and friends. My mom wanted to apologize in person for not believing you about your mom's career." Emma was surprised but pleased. "I'll ask. Let me check with my mom." That evening at dinner, Emma relayed the invitation. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Do you want to go?" she asked Emma. "I think so," Emma said. "Jessica's been really trying to make things right, and it might be nice to do something social." "Then we'll go," Sarah decided. Saturday evening, the Richardson family drove to Jessica's house, a comfortable two-story home in a quiet neighborhood. Jessica's mother, Maria Martinez, greeted them at the door with genuine warmth and what looked like nervous energy. "Commander Richardson, thank you so much for coming," Maria said, shaking Sarah's hand. "I've been feeling terrible all week about how Jessica treated Emma. I'm ashamed that my daughter learned that behavior somewhere, and I'm working to be more mindful of the messages I send. Sarah's response was gracious. Children make mistakes. What matters is how we help them learn and grow from those mistakes. Jessica has shown real remorse and effort to change. That speaks well of your parenting. The evening was pleasant in ways Emma hadn't expected. The dinner guests included several other families from school, and the conversation flowed naturally. People asked Sarah thoughtful questions about military life, and she answered with patience and honesty. Emma found herself relaxing, enjoying the normalcy of the gathering. At one point, Emma and Jessica ended up on the back patio alone, away from the adult conversation. "This is nice," Jessica said. "I'm glad you came." "Me too," Emma admitted. "I wasn't sure at first, but it's been good." "I've been thinking a lot about what your mom said," Jessica continued. "About how everyone is fighting battles we don't know about. I realized I do that too. Judge people without knowing their story. I want to be better about that." "Deal," Jessica said, and they shook hands, this time with genuine French. The final week of Sarah's leave passed far too quickly. Emma tried to savor every moment, from their morning runs together to their evening conversations over dinner. Sarah had arranged to speak at the school assembly on Thursday, just 2 days before she had to report back to base. Wednesday night, Emma found her mother in the home office, reviewing the presentation she'd prepared for the assembly. Sarah looked up as Emma entered and smiled, patting the chair beside her. "Want to help me practice?" Sarah asked. Emma sat down and together they went through the slides. Sarah had included information about military families, statistics about how many children have parents in active service, and resources for teachers and students to better support their military peers. It was educational without being heavy-handed, informative without being boring. "I think the kids will really learn from this," Emma said. "I hope so," Sarah replied. "And I hope it makes things easier for you and other military children at your school." "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always. When you leave again, how do you do it? How do you say goodbye and just go?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her expression contemplating the weight of the question. "It's the hardest thing I do," she finally said. "Every single time. But I remind myself that I'm not abandoning you. I'm serving something bigger than myself, and in doing that, I'm teaching you about sacrifice, duty, and standing up for what you believe in." "Does it ever get easier?" "No," Sarah admitted. "If anything, it gets harder as you get older and I realize how much I'm missing. But I also believe that our time together, however limited, is precious because of that separation. We don't take each other for granted." Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder. "I don't want you to go." "I know, sweetheart. I don't want to go either. But we both know I have to." Thursday morning arrived bright and clear. The entire school gathered in the gymnasium for the assembly, students sitting cross-legged on the floor while teachers lined the walls. Principal Morgan introduced Sarah with obvious respect and admiration. Sarah stood at the podium in her dress uniform, looking professional and composed. Emma sat in the front row with her 5th grade class, her heart swelling with pride. "Good morning," Sarah began. "I'm Commander Sarah Richardson, and I'm here today to talk to you about military families and the children who serve alongside their parents in uniform." She clicked to the first slide, which showed a map of the United States dotted with military bases. "There are approximately 2 million military children in the United States," Sarah explained. "That means millions of kids who deal with frequent moves, long separations from their parents, and the constant stress of knowing their mom or dad is in danger." The students listened attentively. Even the usually rowdy 6th graders were quiet and focused. "Military children are resilient, adaptable, and often more mature than their peers," Sarah continued. "But they also face unique challenges. They struggle to maintain friendships when they move every few years. They deal with anxiety about their parents' safety. They carry the burden of secrets because so much of military work is classified." She shared statistics about military children and their academic performance, their mental health challenges, and the support systems that help them thrive. Then she moved into practical advice for students and teachers. "If you have a classmate with a parent in the military, here are some ways you can support them," Sarah said. "First, believe them when they share their experiences. Don't assume they're lying or exaggerating just because their life is different from yours." Emma noticed several students glancing her way. and she sat up a little straighter. Second, be patient if they're quiet about their parents' work. It's not because they're being secretive or stuck up. It's because they're protecting classified information. That's a heavy responsibility for a child. Sarah clicked to the next slide, which showed children waving American flags at a military homecoming. Third, understand that goodbyes are hard for military families. When their parent deploys, these children don't know exactly when they'll see them again. They can't just pick up the phone and call. They worry every single day. A little extra kindness during those times goes a long way. She paused, letting her words sink in. Fourth, include them. Military children move frequently, which means they're always the new kid. It takes courage to keep putting yourself out there. Keep trying to make friends when you know you might have to leave in a year or two. Make that easier by welcoming them into your groups and activities. The assembly continued with Sarah sharing some stories from her own childhood as a military kid. Her father had been in the Army, and she had moved 8 times before graduating high school. She talked about the loneliness, the challenges, but also the incredible experiences and the strength she gained from that lifestyle. Those experiences shaped who I am today, Sarah said. They taught me adaptability, resilience, and empathy. They showed me that home isn't a place, it's the people you love, and they inspired me to serve, just like my father did. She concluded with a video montage showing military children at various events, from deployment farewells to joyful reunions. Many students had tears in their eyes by the end, including Emma. Principal Morgan thanked Sarah and opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up across the gymnasium. "Do you ever get scared during missions?" a young boy asked. "Yes," Sarah answered honestly. "Fear is natural. But we train extensively so that even when we're scared, we can still do our jobs effectively." "What do you miss most when you're deployed?" a girl asked. Sarah looked directly at Emma. "My daughter. Every single day I miss her smile, her laugh, her hugs. I miss the ordinary moments like helping with homework or making dinner together. Those are the things that matter most." More questions followed, and Sarah answered each one with patience and authenticity. Emma watched the faces in the crowd transform from curiosity to understanding to respect. This was what she had wanted all along, for people to see her mother the way she saw her. After the assembly, several students approached Emma to tell her how cool her mom was. Tyler Chen said his perspective on military service had completely changed. Sophie shared that her cousin was in the Army, and she felt better equipped to support him now. Even some of the older students who had never spoken to Emma before stopped to thank her for her family's sacrifice. That evening, as Sarah packed her gear for deployment, Emma sat on her mother's bed and watched. This ritual had happened countless times before, but it never got easier. "I'm really proud of you, Em," Sarah said as she folded her uniforms with military precision. "The way you handled everything at school, the grace you showed in forgiving Jessica and the others, the strength you've demonstrated these past few months. You're remarkable." "I learned from the best," Emma replied, her voice thick with emotion. Sarah stopped packing and sat beside her daughter. "I need you to know something. What happened at school, that wasn't okay. You should never have had to endure that. But you handled it with more maturity than many adults would have shown. You didn't become bitter or mean in return. You stayed true to yourself." "It was hard," Emma admitted. "The right thing usually is," Sarah said. "But you did it anyway. That's real courage." They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment before Sarah continued packing. Emma helped by organizing smaller items, both of them putting off the inevitable goodbye for as long as possible. Friday morning arrived too soon. Sarah's sea bag was packed and waiting by the front door. Grandma Pat had made a special breakfast, but none of them had much appetite. The weight of the impending departure hung over the house like a storm cloud. When it was time to leave for the base, Sarah hugged Grandma Pat first, thanking her for taking care of Emma. Then she turned to her daughter. "Come here." "Brave girl," Sarah said, opening her arms. Emma flew into her mother's embrace, holding on tight and breathing in her familiar scent. She didn't want to let go. She wanted to freeze this moment and live in it forever. "I love you so much," Sarah whispered. "More than all the stars in the sky and all the water in the ocean. I love you too, Mom," Emma choked out through her tears. "Please be safe." "I'll do my best," Sarah promised. "And I'll be home before you know it. We'll video chat whenever I can. And remember, even when I'm far away, I'm thinking about you." They held each other for a long moment before Sarah gently pulled back. She wiped the tears from Emma's cheeks and smiled. "You've got this. You're stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and loved more than you know," Emma nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Sarah picked up her bag, gave them both one last look filled with love and pride, and walked out the door. Emma and Grandma Pat stood on the porch waving until the truck disappeared from view. The house felt empty without Sarah's presence, but Emma reminded herself of everything that had changed in the past few weeks. She wasn't alone anymore. She had friends at school now. She had teachers who understood. She had a community that had learned to see beyond the surface and appreciate the sacrifices military families made. Monday morning, Emma walked into school with her head held high. Jessica met her at her locker with a genuine smile. "How are you doing?" Jessica asked. "I know your mom left on Friday, and Madison,